And hi, everyone. Welcome to Project 180. My name is Kevin McGowan. Today, we're going to be speaking with Deanna Davies. We're going to have the really, I think, topic that a lot of people are always kind of wondering about in terms of how to apply for that next project management job, how to stand out from the pack, and how to prepare your network in terms of supporting your career and your career changes as they come along. So, Deanna, first of all, hi.
Hello there.
Could you please just introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about your work too? I know you're at St. Lawrence College, but please tell us a bit about that.
I am. First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin, for the invitation. I always love the opportunity to talk about project management, and in particular, this topic is such top of mind with something that I do every single day with our students at St. Lawrence College. So again, my name is Deanna Davies. I'm the program coordinator of the Project Management Graduate Certificate Program at St. Lawrence College. For both the Kingston campus, I'm located on the Kingston campus, and also the Cornwall campus as well. I'm also a professor in the program, so I have the opportunity to work very closely with the students at a very different level than the coordinator level as well. In particular, as we talk about this topic, one of the courses that I do teach is career readiness and personal leadership. And it is certainly one of those programs that it's offered in our last term. And it's one of those courses that you take in the program that we're hoping, and the feedback we get is that it's all about you. And it's all about exactly what we're talking about, preparing yourself for the job search, for the interview, and the journey beyond the classroom.
I like how you said that. Thanks so much, and thanks for the explanation.
You're welcome.
I'm very, very grateful for your time here today too. By the way, Deanna. So thanks so much. Interesting that you're saying part of the program is actually thinking about the job search, which I think 100 years ago when I was in school doing various degrees and whatever, that wasn't really part of the program. So how did that kind of become an integral part of the program at St. Lawrence College?
I love that question because, again, in a grad cert program, it's intense. You've got one whole academic year, or otherwise known as 8 months, 2 semesters. And as we all know, as project managers, there's a lot to cover. And so one of the things that we did when we were designing this program is we looked at, well, what happens after? And so a lot of our feedback as we were developing the program was we need something to help prepare students for the next step. And that's why we chose that. What we really wanted to do in our first term, I teach a course also that's called Communication and Partnerships for projects. And we look at the stakeholders, the actors, and the partners. And we look at self before we have to look at how do I communicate. And that is one of the only times we look at self other than a leadership course. And so we said, why not close off this program with revisiting self? And so that's what we really do in this one course. We focus in on self and understanding ourselves that much more. So when we actually start the journey of the career search or the career planning and development, we can then have depth rather than breadth.
Right. And it is a very personalized journey.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's got, they're like in anything else, you got your strengths, you've got weaknesses and challenges, and you also have to balance this into your whole life too. So obviously we can't do the whole class, in the next 20 minutes, but I want to what's something that you would really advise, or, one or two kind of top things you would advise somebody, they're coming out of school, or they're starting to look for that next gig. Like, what do they really have to consider in terms of their own goals, maybe their own values going forward?
Well, you know what? Exactly what you just said, Kevin. You know, it
Perfect.
starts off with ourselves, right?
Nailed it.
And we do that. We do that in this course, which I love. We're in week 4 of our winter term. So we literally spent the last 3 weeks in class around yourself. So I'm sure there are many people that are on this call that have had experiences in whether you're doing Myers-Briggs, Hofstede, we do Hofstede, we do cultural intelligence as well, or whether you've done other personality tests. So we do a variety of those, and we do them with intention. So there's cross-referencing, and then we hone in on the values, your personality, what is it that you're looking for? What actually feeds your soul? And what is an opportunity for you to search with intention rather than closing your eyes and saying, I applied to 100 this week. So we really focus in on that. And what I love about it is in our classroom, our classes are only 25 students as a maximum. So we have that opportunity to really personalize this, and then we share and we get feedback. In a post-grad program, our students are typically more mature. Our students often have had a professional world of working already. So they come with a breadth of skill sets already and a variety of different resumes that already have depth. And they have focus. And so what's really great is we do that, and then we develop from there throughout the 14 weeks.
Right. So really in your class, you've got a lot of, I mean, not to generalize, but like, career changers or people who are looking to go deeper in the PM career, or maybe switching from one thing to project management.
Yeah,
right?
we really do. And I would be remiss if I didn't say the pandemic actually changed that landscape significantly. In fact, sometimes we will sometimes have students that come to our program that have already been certified. And what they want is more depth of knowledge, and they're upskilling. And so it changes the dynamics within the classroom. And it's not just PMPs coming in. We have a variety of different certified individuals in the room. And then we have some that have had a consistent educational path. So maybe they have just finished a BA, and now they want to go into project management. So it's really interesting, all the different paths that actually create this dynamic classroom.
Well, and I've found that too in my career. The project managers always seem to come from somewhere else,
For sure.
some other discipline or some other career path has kind of led them to this. And even people I've chatted with for this series, it's like you kind of become a project manager when you're doing your job one day and your boss shows up and says, "Hey, I need you to run this thing," and now all of a sudden you've got to figure out how to do this skill set on top of it. Yeah. But in terms of like the job search or getting yourself ready for doing that, I mean, we want to talk about how to kind of distinguish yourself from maybe other applicants in the pool. There's a couple of ways to do that job search, though. There's the traditional, hey, I saw this posting on LinkedIn, I'm sending in my CV and I'm filling in the form and I'm doing that. But then there's the networking side of it as well. So how would you recommend somebody with a PM background or coming into the role leverage their network to find something reasonable in the space?
It's a great question. And I think that there's no magic wand for this. I think that, first of all, networking comes with intention and with effort. And, we talk about this a lot in our classroom as well. And, I'll often say, well, I'm just starting out and I have no network. And so what I'll always say is, let's start off with you. And, let's look at this small circle around you. If you've already know what your focus is finding the connections and then going beyond. And there are different ways to network, right? We obviously, you mentioned LinkedIn. Of course, there's a LinkedIn and there's this digital connection. And I have a great story when 2 weeks ago, I had a gentleman that reached out to me that we had worked together over, I know I'm starting to age myself now, about 25 years ago. And he was actually a student. And he said, you may not remember me, but he gave me some context. And he was not a first level contact or in my network. And when he brought the context of how we had met, it then sparked, and he indicated, he said, I've done my homework and I realize you're connected with so-and-so, and that individual I'm actually applying to, but I already noticed there are 2,000 people that have applied. And he said, I'm wondering if you happen to know them and if you could just drop my name or make mention. And he found a door, and he did the homework though. And so, I commended him and I said, that's what the networking on LinkedIn is all about. Yep. It's so important that we understand how much depth there is in that opportunity right there. But then there's also networks that we can build that are surrounding us. And I tell the students, start off with your peers around you. In project management, we are so fortunate, especially in our program, where every industry is represented in that classroom. And it keeps on growing. So each semester, I never know, we have healthcare, we have manufacturing, we have business and not-for-profit. And so when you start building the network with the peers that are closer to you, it can then start to grow. And then volunteering. Where else are you building the opportunities to get that breadth? And the volunteerism is a really important component. And we know, and I remember reading some research during the pandemic around what's been happening to the social economy and what's been happening to volunteerism. And there is so much opportunity to continue to grow that network within volunteerism.
Well, and I think what I get asked periodically, hey, how do I build my network? How do I connect with more and more people in terms of, sometimes you are searching maybe a little bit of quantity over quality necessarily in your network. But I always recommend like the PMI. I mean, and any PMP obviously is a member of the Project Management Institute, but there's chapters everywhere, and you can volunteer with a chapter. It doesn't even have to be near you, which is another thing that the pandemic really shifted, right? Because I know that the PMI Ottawa Kingston group has volunteers from Toronto and Montreal and all over the country. You don't have to be local to do the volunteering anymore. So there's really a lot more opportunity for somebody who is looking to get some experience, for one thing, but also build the network and start just that communication, because now all of a sudden you're on all these emails going out to thousands of PMI members, and you're representing that organization. Even as a volunteer, it's huge for your network and for your own credibility too, in some respects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there's anything positive that really did come out of, obviously, the evolution of time, but also the pandemic, is the fact that we no longer have these geographical regions. And so you're right, there's opportunity for volunteerism. But, when we are also talking about the job market, there's opportunity because there are more hybrid opportunities, but there's also even that much more competition as well for us to acknowledge.
Well, that's perfect segue, because the next thing I wanted to ask you about was distinguishing yourself. How do you stand out? Because I'm aging myself here too. 25-ish years ago, if I was living in Ottawa like I am, and I'm applying for an Ottawa job, I know the market only has so many people in it. Now I apply for that job, it might be an Ottawa company, but it's all remote or it's hybrid or whatever. So that opens up the country and the whole planet for people to apply for this job. How do you manage to navigate that challenge in terms of really wanting to stand out and make sure you're going to be one of those top few people called for any particular role?
Well, and that is such a good question in the sense that it's continuously changing. We are all changing. And so it's developing what is our unique selling point to that particular role and opportunity. And I think that we really need to look at that. And that's why there's a component of this course that we teach, and it's around that personal leadership. And when we can understand our unique selling points and we can understand what's going to differentiate me from everybody else. And, it starts off with the beginning. It starts off even in that networking. What is it that somebody else could tell me about me that I want them to share with somebody else? And, it's about that personal branding and that development as well. And so, I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue to pivot and change as you focus on where your next effort and where your next applications are going to go.
Well, that's a really good point. It's never, like, again, I go back 100 years applying for jobs in the 90s. If the distinguishing factor for a lot of applicants in technical documentation, where I start off with, do you know how to use FrameMaker? Great, you're in. That alone got you to the next phase. But now it's so much more complex than that. Especially if you do have a LinkedIn presence or a social media presence. Does your persona align with the company that you're applying to? Is that the industry that you're keen on? Are they going to be keen on you? Like, there's so much more to it than that old school HR checklist that may have had a couple of decades ago. So I think it's a lot more complicated now, and probably potentially more difficult. It's hard to navigate that, because you want to be general, maybe as a project manager, because your skills are so transferable, but you can't necessarily position yourself as, well, I'm in manufacturing, I'm in medical, I'm in healthcare industry. Like, you almost have to kind of pick where you want to go first, and then try to find the role that fits that persona that you created.
Yeah. And I think that's why, one of the things that we talk about a lot in the classroom, they're rich conversations, by the way, is, having intention as you start to build that personal brand, and there's not as much fragmentation. So are you being true? Let's say your personal, your social media.
Yeah.
Are you being true in your social media to speak the voice of you? And that's building your brand. And whether that's utilizing posts that are consistent, images that are consistent to align with your own personal brand. We know a brand is a promise to the consumer. Searching for the job or searching for gigs, which a lot of us still do in project management, really is a project. And as project managers, we are diligent in managing our projects. Consider ourselves the project. And it starts off with that intention and building as we manage it. And so the consistency of our social media, the consistency of the words that we use in our cover letters. And again, I don't know if you're going to be touching on that. And we certainly hear a lot of different comments about the cover letter. The consistency in your resume. We know that we have this incredible asset called AI, and it can also be a big detriment as well. And if we're utilizing them, as we know, PMI says, this is a tremendous asset to us. For those of you, I'm not sure if you've jumped into Infinity, it's quite fascinating.
It is, yeah.
Well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have to remember, the bots are only the bots. You are the brand. You are the human. And so is there consistency in everything that you've done from the beginning all the way through to the end? Because ultimately, when we're standing in front of an employer, somebody that may be interviewing us, which, by the way, your networking is an interview every day. And so are we telling a consistent story? And that is really important. That's something that the robots or the AI can't do for you. So again, we use the AI to our advantage and our tool, but we also know that we need to have our own consistent personal brand. And that's what's so unique to just you.
Yeah. I like how you phrase that in terms of, the brand is you, and you have to be consistent with that. And I know that's, I think a lot of us, struggle in terms of the social media persona. You want to be on social, you want to be on LinkedIn, you want to keep track of colleagues and whatever, but to use that, to then take that and use it more professionally, effectively is a very different game than just posting, dog photos on Facebook or something like that, right? And I guess that comes back to the intention that you're talking about too. The flip side, the danger zone of that though, is when you are using social media, you're putting yourself out there in any way. It's easy to get, have things be misinterpreted perhaps, or you're posting things that maybe definitely do not align with a particular company you want to join. So there's obviously a lot of inherent risks in that as well, which I guess is a risk management conversation, but that might be for another day.
Most definitely it is. And what we all know is that we have this digital footprint. Mm-hmm. And I can remember when I used to teach marketing, and we would talk about leadership, and we talked about social media. And I remember having an expert come in, and with permission from some of the students, I would use them with the researcher. And the researcher would come in and present and go, there's your digital footprint. I can just remember jaws dropping, because we forget that. We forget that exists, and just because, the water is gone behind us does not mean that those footprints are gone. And so when we are now building our own personal brand in our professional world, what is that? And is that something that is true to us? And that's why that discovery stage of ourselves is so, so important.
Maybe, Deanna, we'll just leave it there. But I want to say thank you so very much for coming today and for chatting with us.
Thank you for the time.
All right. Thanks so much, Deanna. And thanks, everybody, for coming. And we'll see y'all next time.
Great. Thank you.